We live?
We live. My name is Nicholas Higgs.
And I'm Jarrel Hall.
Welcome to Mastering Finance, the podcast, an educational podcast focused on providing the tools and knowledge you need to be successful in your business, your personal finance, and the capital markets. The Mastering Finance was a concept started in 2019, and I looked around the market and I saw so much of the persons I looked up to, the mentors or the academics, and they either wrote in the newspaper or maybe they wrote inside journals, but they always had these things documented, something written. And I said, I'm not the biggest writer of that type of analysis. And so I said, what other way can I get information out, or what other avenues are there available? And I saw podcasting as a tool. And so that's where the concept started in 2019, looking for an avenue to provide information. And interesting enough, the title wasn't Mastering Finance at the time. It was Stacking Marlins. It was Stacking Marlins. I thought it was such a cool title. And then the reason why it changed is I realized this podcast wasn't only going to be local. We were going to be regional and we were going to be global. So we needed a title that reflected not just a local brand, but a global brand. And so that's how it became Mastering Finance from Stacking Marlins.
I think our core audience are persons who sort of, fit the bill of what Nick said. Persons who are looking to start a business, but they don't know how. Persons who are in business, but they're struggling and they need to sort of, quote unquote, hear a word from persons that are having or have had that experience that they may be having. And then we're looking for persons who just simply need help understanding finance. So, you may be a student in high school, you may be a professional working in a different field that doesn't necessarily intimately involve itself with finance. And so we're hoping that we can inspire persons to take action on some of the things that they may have wanted to from a business standpoint, but also from a personal finance standpoint. Persons may want to pursue, purchasing a home, or they may want to pursue purchasing a car, try to figure out how they navigate their lives. And so we're hopefully, through some of the conversations we have with some of our guests who, will be smarter than we are, we'll be able to inspire persons to take action on some of the goals they want to achieve.
We want our viewer to learn the practical information and knowledge to execute on whatever their vision is. Whether you're trying to raise money, whether you're trying to start a business, whether you're trying to improve your personal financing. We don't want to say just savings and budgeting. We want to really explain to you the best way to find debt is to do this. It's the best way to really take yourself from saving only a portion of your salary to saving this amount. We want to teach persons the practical tools and information. So topics we'll be discussing is navigating the landscape of business. How do you really execute a business plan? Why your business plan isn't going to be funded. So we'll have these topics that are practical, and we'll have guests that provide the information that they're in their current experiences and in their careers that allow you to really walk away saying, I understand.
That's a great question. Let's see. So, I can vividly remember when I was second grade, so I must have been like about maybe 7 years old. And I had been to a party on the weekend, and I had this party bag, I got some candy in it. And so I went to school and everybody wanted some candy, and I needed to get some salty. So I was like, I'll just, I give you the candy, you give me a quarter back. So it really just started from there, I think. But as I got older, I just realized that I just gravitated towards seeing problems and trying to find a way to solve them. So from there, I just kind of ventured into businesses, like just seeing problems, asking like, why isn't someone doing this differently, or how can we do it differently? And then just kind of followed it that way. So I think it's just, if I can answer it in a more shorter version, it's just, I saw a problem and just thought about a solution to try to get it solved.
So my experience is a little different. My father is an entrepreneur. And growing up, I didn't understand what entrepreneur meant. I just know he would go to work 7 in the morning and he would come home 7 at night just working for take care of the family. And I became obsessed with the concept of working those long hours, or just being a part of something that you were dedicated to and focused to. And through that, I learned to become an entrepreneur. I learned I had to work those extra hours. So I had to fill that time up. After school, when I finished doing work, I didn't want to just watch TV. I wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And so my father was doing something after those hours. And so that's how I really got into entrepreneurship, trying to figure out what to do with my time and to fill up the schedule as much as possible. And that's how I started working in my father's office, or I would work in a cousin's shop, or in Harbour Island, work in the grandmother's bakery. So it was always something I was trying to get done because of that.
It's cool, man.
It's not as easy as it looks. And that sounds so simple, and when we break it down episode to episode, persons will better understand and appreciate it. But this podcast is really for the person looking for practical knowledge. And through that, we have a lot of examples. And my favorite for me was it's very hard. You don't sleep. It's not as romantic as movies make it seem, or how Instagram makes it look. It's not as romantic. So I'll say that's the biggest lesson I had to learn, and it's not as beautiful as people think it is.
Yeah, I think for me, I just think it's just the fact that nothing is going to go as planned. So no matter how much effort you put into planning, it's all good. You have a guide, but at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, it's going to go left, right, up, down, and you just have to be prepared to pivot. And I think that's probably one of the most important lessons I've learned.
Every single business that I've worked along with has a business plan, and we've never followed that to the T. Either things were better or things were worse, and so that's just life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, if I just think back on some of my experiences, some of them, it should have been obvious, but they weren't. So, starting business ventures with partners and not doing the, proper due diligence to really understand what the expectations are from both parties, or if there are more than one party, and just making sure you have a grasp on that, because you can go into it and everybody has their own understanding of how things should be or how things are gonna be, and then you get to a point where everybody's just at a crossroads, and then things just fall apart. So I think the most important thing that I've learned, especially when going into business with partners, is to just truly ask the tough questions, get down to the nitty gritty about understanding what the expectations are for me.
That's a good point too. Mine would be, well, we're going to split this podcast and we speak about things in the pre-funding, funding, and post-funding.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck in the pre-funding phase. And so for me, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to the numbers and the wording. And so now I'm spending weeks and months just reading over and over again. And going back to our first point, nothing ever goes as planned. And so I'll say, don't get stuck in the pre-funding phase, the analyst phase, because you will spend eternity writing that business plan, looking at
all
projections.
just guesses too.
Exactly. So that would be my advice on that is, don't get stuck in that pre-funding phase. I wish I knew that, so I would have started a little sooner. And so it's better to get starting the work than just sitting there thinking about what it's going to be like. I get to really be involved with developing and getting involved in helping people get funding for their businesses. And so whether it's helping them develop their plan, their feasibility study, or the funding aspect of it, or watching a company that you saw from an idea and you helped this entrepreneur get through all these hurdles, and now they're funded and they're executing their business, and now they're hitting 2-3x net income. It's just amazing. So that for me is the most fulfilling thing when it comes to my career in development financing.
Yeah, I think for me, career-wise, it's sort of being involved in the big picture. So just being a part of the points in the business where you can see how decisions are made, you can see how people think through different scenarios, and then you get to be a part of sort of the numerical picture of that. So going through the numbers and trying to see, this is how we think something's gonna do. And then interestingly enough, I can just kind of walk right out of the office and actually see the operations working. And so you just kind of have a look behind the numbers. So that's the interesting part for me from a career standpoint. And then from an entrepreneurial standpoint, to me, it's all about the customer, right? So, I remember vividly just having that experience when I with Relish Socks, when we sold the first few pairs of socks, and seeing people's experience, right? And seeing their reaction to the socks, and you're like, do they like it? Do they not like it? So I think those would be the two things I'll hit up.
If I had down the entrepreneurship side, I have not done as much entrepreneurship as you have directly myself, but entrepreneurship side has been very fulfilling because it's the decisions you've made. You have to live and die by your decisions, right? Or you have to be accountable to yourself. in other organizations, I'm accountable, whether it's to my manager or whether it's to a board or, whether it's to the community. But in your own company, the accountability, the success of it lies with you holding yourself accountable.
Yep.
I just enjoy that slight pressure. I enjoy that for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. So typically people say that, someone's either left side of the brain, right side of the brain. I don't know if it's true, but I feel like it may be true. So I love the numbers. I love doing the analysis. I love building out the models. But then I also like the branding side, which I guess you would call the creative side. I don't know if it's left or right. I just know I think they're separated. And so I like to kind of, work the numbers out, see how things are going to pan out. But then, like I said earlier, like go into the operation, see things move, and then just kind of figure out like, okay, we can do some branding there and do some stuff over here. So I just think the whole realm of business, both sides of it, I just love it. So I think that's what I'd say.
I think my answer is very similar to yours. For me, I like to say that I'm not a creative,
right?
That I'm a number guy.
Yeah.
I'm a creative.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would like to say. I'm a creative. We create these ideas, these concepts, and you see these visions of what this can be start as and become.
Yeah, the podcast.
So I'm a creative. So yes, to our listener, on our first, where you're going to hear from us, I'm a creative. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
That's not an easy question.
Yeah.
It's not an easy question. So the first person I would say out of that is Sir Milo Butler.
That's a good one.
As a born, raised Bahamian, you have to understand what he did and where their family is now.
Yeah.
And watching how that family how they overcame what they did at the time, and to be where their family name is such synonymous with success and influence. I would love to have dinner and understand, was this the plan?
Yeah.
Did you see this? Did you see this bigger? What did you see when you planned out your family's life, and what were the pros and cons, the risk, rewards, the sacrifice? I would love to have a conversation and with Sir Milo Butler to understand that.
So yeah, that's a really good one actually, and it's good that it's Bahamian as well, and mine is Bahamian too. My choice to that would be Sir Franklin Wilson, and the reason why is because of what he was able to do, similarly to Sir Milo during the time of the Bahamas' history, right? And again, he was an integral part of the Sunshine Boys. He was an integral part of I think it's the young, what is it called? YOP,
yes,
Young
YPO.
Professionals Organization. So he played an integral role. And even to this day, he's, I think, somewhere between 70 and 80 years old. He's still going, right? And so I think just to get a glimpse of his thought process when he thought to form the Sunshine Boys, it was a group of young Bahamian men coming together and having the ambition and the vision and the foresight to even do something like that. And it's something that a lot of Bahamians struggle with doing today. So I think just to think that 30 plus years ago, this was something that he was thinking about and he did, I think, you just have to kind of understand the thinking behind it. So I would definitely choose him.
Well, that's an excellent one. And unfortunately, my second one is someone who is deceased as well. Margaret Thatcher.
Oh, Iron Lady.
She has to be somebody. I'm sorry. I really think when you look at what she's had to overcome, what she's had to accomplish, especially in that time period, it's just legendary. And just how did she know how to make those decisions? And as the Iron Lady, she was known for being decisive and unwavering. And so for myself as a leader, there are some times when I feel like I allow myself to be influenced at times.
Yeah.
I would love to know, how do you, as a woman in that time, in that era, how did you have the courage and how did you have the tenacity to make it through those type of hurdles? So I would love to sit down and ask her, how did she navigate those?
Yeah. And I think for me, I would choose Winston Churchill. And the reason why is because, again, he's not a business guy. He's not known for being in business, but I just think there's certain elements of business, and some people would say the entirety of business itself is somewhat militaristic in terms of the strategy, in terms of the approach. And I think he's a perfect example because he was a wartime prime minister. And he played an integral role in lots of the sort of geopolitical landscape that we see today. And I think it has to be some elements that he may have thought about, or conversations he had, lessons learned that you can apply to business today. It could be, being extremely, tenacious, whatever it is. I just think he would have a lot of sort of quote unquote non-business elements that you can kind of learn from and apply to your business.
I agree. And just on Winston Churchill's side too, we have social media now. And 20, 30 years ago, we had TV still, and 50 years ago to TV, right? Winston Churchill, the way things happened for them, when a war was happening in a different country or a different continent, he still knew the strings to pull to cause certain reactions to happen without having that source of daily information being provided as easily as ourselves.
As we get
so
it
being
now.
able to understand how could he even have the fortitude to be able to sit in his house and know that if I send a fax or I tell someone to do this, it has to translate to across there and something will happen. It's just, he's a magnificent pick. And my third person would be, I'm in finance. I can't pretend, like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is somebody who I've looked up to from the first time I've looked at accounts. You've always wanted to know about Warren Buffett. Your parents talk about Warren Buffett. He's been synonymous with wealth and success, and in finance, conservatism. So he's very conservative with all his returns, all the money he's amassed. He's still also synonymous with being conservative with his money, the way he analyzes businesses. His concepts still live today, even in this world of cryptocurrency or of all these different binary options. He still is extremely conservative and still making his constant returns. So being able to understand how he's been through generations, decades, different crises over and over again and continue to be successful, how does someone do that? I'd love to ask him those questions.
And fun fact about Warren too, most of his wealth was amassed after the age of 65, which a lot of people don't know that. Right, and he talks a lot about compound interest. So I think that's a fantastic pick.
Great information.
And I think my final pick, I think I'm kind of torn between two people. And so the first would be John D. Rockefeller, and the reason why is because, if you read anything about business, you're going to run across his name.
Correct.
And the reason why is because he was a visionary. He was the founder of Standard Oil, which eventually sort of got broken up and separated into companies we know today as Chevron, as ExxonMobil, etc. And these companies still exist today. But beyond his perseverance, his tenacity, his shrewd business approach to business, he was also very philanthropic. And I think that's the side of business that we don't see a lot. And so in this podcast, we're going to talk about these sorts of things and have some guests that may speak about these things as well. And so that's my first pick. And then my second pick, because I can't choose between the two, is a guy called Richard Lewis. And he was a trained lawyer from Harvard. He worked on Wall Street in finance. Eventually, he became a financier, essentially. And he was actually the wealthiest African American in the 1980s. And beyond all of that, the reason why I sort of picked him is because he and John D. Rockefeller had the same sort of tenacious approach to business and very shrewd. And so all throughout his career, he was told that he couldn't do it because obviously he was not of the, which we would call the correct hue in that day. And so he was able to sort of, come out of all of that. He did the largest leveraged buyout back in the 80s, which was unheard of, especially from an African American. And so he pushed the barriers, right? And I think that's what, and with this podcast of what we're doing, Nick, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to push the barriers of the limitations of the information that people don't have access to. And so those will be my two picks.
I completely agree, and that is what this podcast is about. Providing information with longevity. All the places we've mentioned have longevity in their fields.
For sure.
Have overcome not just small hurdles, but global crises, or they've experienced just global changes in environments. And they've navigated those. So there are still so many good guests we're going to have who are going to speak about the same type of things and provide the same type of information. So I'm excited for the guests as well.
Oh yeah.